sign-up sheet. We're going to do those next week. So next week we won't have like a meeting like this. We're just going to do the MMIs next Friday night at 6, right? So there's a sign-up sheet over there if you guys are interested. I didn't really come up prepared as far as their announcements.
After basketball breaks, we don't.
Okay, yeah, so we don't have meetings for the next 2 weeks. Let's try to forget about that. So yeah, Isaac and Beck have had lots of interviews, and Zach's had a few interviews as well, right? So if you want to chip in, feel free to. So yeah, we're going to get some good instruction today. Feel free to ask these guys any questions. They have had lots of experience thus far. We have Ethan wanted to make a quick announcement about volunteer opportunity as well.
It happens to be the same time as interviews. So if you're not going to the interviews, or if they get done earlier, there's a Best Buddies activity going on campus. It's like a Halloween party from 6 to 8:30 next Friday. So it's a good opportunity to get service. It's a good long-term commitment one because you can be a part of it for a full year.
Did you sign up at that event?
So yeah, you can sign up at that event, or you can just show up and just kind of be a part of it. And they work really good at your syncs and logging your hours. And it's kind of something you can plan on your own schedule. Once if you sign up to have a buddy, you just kind of make activities on your own throughout the month. So it's a good one if you're pretty pressed for time, you can't go to all the organized things. So.
Does everyone know what Best Buddies is? Does anyone not know what that is? What is it? Would you describe it?
So Best Buddies, it's like a connection between special needs people up in Weaver State and then other students. So they assign, if you can either be an associate buddy or a mentor buddy. A mentor buddy, they assign you like a specific special needs person. You do activities with them, you go to activities, and you kind of just set up like your own things. They can go to football games with them, or you can be what they call an associate buddy and just show up to the activities and just kind of help out with everyone. Like a few weeks ago, we were just at the bowling down here. We went to Wildcat Lane and just bowled with everyone. It's really fun time, activities, spend time with them. It's a good kind of like introduction to a different culture as well that I think would be good for application purposes, that it's a lot of your comfort zone.
Where does that mean at?
So it's going to be in the ballroom here on campus for the Halloween party, and then
you have to dress up.
No, they want you. They want people to dress up in costumes, but you don't have to. You'll probably be dressing.
So like if I dressed up as a clown, right? Would that be okay? Would that be considered okay? No clowns. Cool. Is that everything?
Yeah.
You're in? Cool. Has anyone been to those research meetings, like the research club meetings? How have those been? Have there been like opportunities that you've seen or anything like that?
The first one was just kind of an introduction to what the club's about, which if you don't know, it's basically just to present or provides opportunities for students to get connected with professors on projects.
Yesterday was the chemistry one, right?
Yeah, so yesterday they had all the chemistry professors just present a short thing on what they're doing in research and if they need students and what they do participate. So it's mostly just to provide avenues to either know professors and find opportunities.
Cool. Yeah, I like what they're doing, so I think it's useful for us. But anyway, as far as all the announcements, unless anyone else has anything or has any questions. Okay, we'll leave the rest of the time to these guys.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So, this is a really fun topic to talk about. Actually, me and Beck are going to kind of tag team this. I'm going to kind of take the front end and talk about interviews in general and traditional interviews, because all my interviews so far have been traditional, not MMI. And then Beck's going to talk more about the MMI interviews because he's done some of those. And then, do we have anyone else besides Zach who's been to interviews this year or ever? Okay, then Zach, feel free to chime in whenever you have anything you want to share. So yeah. Okay. So just to give you a general outline of what an interview day looks like, they'll differ between different schools that you go to. Generally, all of them will give you like a presentation on the school where they'll tell you about their curriculum, and they'll tell you about their tuition, and they'll tell you about their facilities and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of all the details that you need to know about the school. Generally, they'll always give you a tour of either the school itself or the hospital that it's associated with. And then you'll always have, obviously, your interview. And those can be very different as well. I've had 2 schools, well, I've interviewed at 3 schools so far, DMU, Des Moines University, Midwestern in Arizona, and then Texas A&M. And my shortest interviews have just been 30 minutes of interviews, that's it. And then, but the U is like, I'm trying to get people like 2 hours worth of interviews, would you say? I think it is a mile so it's like, if you include the neurological exam, it's like 3 hours. So it can vary a lot of how long you're actually going to be interviewing that day. And then they'll also feed you lunch, I think. Can't remember, they'll feed you lunch with students. Yeah. And then they can also have like a student panel where they'll just have some students sit up front and you can just ask them questions about their experiences and that kind of thing. DO schools do OMM demonstrations a lot where they'll take you into the OMM lab and just show you some OMM. And then sometimes they'll do financial aid stuff to talk about. How much?
Does anyone know what OMM is?
Oh yeah, good call.
Population.
Awesome, Scott, interested in this?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of the DO style that differs from MD. They just kind of teach how they kind of work the body to kind of help relieve symptoms and stuff like that. Just working through like muscles and kind of like chiropractic stuff in a way. Kind of do a little demonstration of that.
They pop someone's pelvis at one that I saw. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, they'll always show you, I think they'll always show you those at DO schools because that's kind of what sets them apart from MD schools. They want you to know and have an experience with that. So then I want to just outline some, like, going into interviews, what I would have liked to know going in, or things that I feel like have really helped me when I've been in interviews that I've been really glad that I've done. So the first thing is practicing before you go to the interview. You definitely want to screw up before you go to your interview in a practice than you do in a real interview. There's lots of different opportunities to be able to practice before you go. Like we're talking about, we have our MMI event this week, so those are practice mini interviews, which is what Beck's going to talk about. The Career Services Center, I don't know if you guys know this, they'll interview you and they'll record you while they do it. And so you can get a copy of your recording of your interview and watch all the awkward, uncomfortable things that you do while you're interviewing. I did this before I went, and I noticed that when I was interviewing, I was holding way too still, and my face was way too, like, emotionless, like I was just, like, frozen there. And I was like, I need to kind of loosen up a little bit and that kind of thing in my interview, and I feel like I was able to find that out because I did that practice interview, and because I was recorded and that kind of a thing. And Dr. Fritzler, oh yeah?
So, for the career services, how do you go about like scheduling that?
Just call him. I was just going to say, Dr. Fritzler has talked to one of the guys there. I think his name is Greg. I think that's who I did it with.
Yeah.
So just call Career Services and say, I'd like to set up a medical school interview, practice interview with Greg.
Okay.
And then they'll set you up with him. But Dr. Fritzler's talked to him about what medical school interviews are like, because usually the Career Services does job interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of talked him through that, so he's a little better prepared for what a medical school interview is like. So, you can just ask people you know. I bet Dr. Fritzler's happy to do practice interviews with anyone who wants to do them with him, but other professors or a doctor or anything like that, just get as much practice as you can. And then practice with yourself in the mirror. You'll feel like an idiot, but it's really good to see yourself right there and just be like talking and see the weird things that you do so that you can figure those out before you're actually doing it to someone who matters. Yeah. Okay, second thing, know the school. I think this is really important. You want to know the school as well as you possibly can before you go there for the interview, so that you can separate that experience and make it unique, and so that you can know what the school thinks is unique about themselves. I think you will always be asked the question, why do you want to attend this medical school? Like, why this school in particular? And if you don't know what makes that school unique or what they're proud of, you're going to just have a response that's like, I want to be a doctor and you guys give out medical degrees. Like, that's why I'm here, which is going to sound really bad, even if that's public advice if you like. So know something unique about the school. Are they really proud of the research that they do? Are they really proud about something else on like some curriculum thing that they do? Even the city itself, when I interviewed at Des Moines, I felt like Des Moines was really proud of the city of Des Moines, that it was really family friendly and it was a really good place to live. So that's one thing I talked about when they asked me this question, is one of the draws that was pulling me to that school. If any way possible, talk to someone who's attending that school right now. If you don't know anyone who's there, you could just contact the admissions office. They're happy to set you up and just say, oh yeah, we can give you a student you can call and just talk to you about whatever you want to talk to them about. So that you can get a little bit of background about the school from someone who's there at the time. Admissions offices are really, really helpful. If you want to contact them for anything, they'll help you if they can. Okay, next thing is know your application. anything that's written on your application anywhere is free game in an interview. Even if it's like the smallest little detail, they could bring it up. And it varies a lot between different schools that you're going to be interviewing at. So for example, at DMU, they asked me about hospice volunteering and some of my experiences in that. And they asked me about, I don't know, a physician that I shadowed. And at Midwestern in Arizona, they asked me about research that I've done, a conference I attended, and the fact that I lived in a mortuary for a while, which I barely mentioned on my application. It was just like a little thing, and they still asked about it. So you're going to get all over the shop in different schools that you go to. They're going to ask you about totally different things, and they can ask you about tiny little things too. So especially some things like really complex, like if you did some really crazy research, and you tried to write about it in your little 500 character, whatever they gave you on your application, and it's just like really dense, they might ask you to clarify what you were really doing and what the point of it was. One question, I have it written up later, but I did research with Dr. Covey about an enzyme that might be related and how it relates to diabetes. So I didn't like study diabetes particularly, we were more studying this enzyme. But when I went to my interview, they asked, so I noticed you've done some studying of or some research in diabetes, or related to diabetes. How would you as a physician approach or teach a patient who is at high risk for diabetes and is living a really poor lifestyle, like making really bad lifestyle choices for that? So that was how they took something from my application and twisted it into kind of like a hypothetical ethical question. If there's holes in your application, like if you have some bad grades somewhere, or you have a bad MCAT score or something like that, they will ask you about it more likely than not. I got a C- in an English class in high school in a concurrent enrollment class, and they asked me about it. They were kind of laughing when they did. They're like, we don't really care. This was in 2009, but they still asked me about it just because they have to. So if there's holes in your application, that will probably come up. And so there's a little incentive for you to make sure your applications are really solid when you apply so that there aren't those holes that they can focus on. It can make your interview a lot more comfortable. Okay, this is my last big point. When you go to your interview, you want to make sure you're interviewing the school as well. When they invite you there, they want you to go to their school. That's why they picked you to interview. So you'll notice that they're really trying to show off their best side to you. They really want you to see the cool new anatomy lab that they have, and the cool research that's going on, and the really fancy lecture hall that they have. So it's really important to get to know the school as well as you can when you're there. Have you guys looked at med schools' websites to try and find out information about them? Is it like the worst thing ever because they all look the exact same? We are trying to use ingenuitive new ways to teach students to... It's all the same on their website. So when you go to the school, you'll get a really different feel. You'll get a feel of what the professors are like, because some of them will probably be interviewing you. You'll get a good feel of what the students are feeling like. You'll talk to lots of students when you interview. So when you go prepared with questions to ask them. I made a big list of questions that I look at before I interview, of questions to ask the school. Questions for interviewers, for professors, for doctors who are interviewing you, for students, tons for students. Because you want to be able to know when you leave, if you get accepted to multiple places, you want to know where you're going to end up. And if you get to know the school really well, you'll be able to make that decision a little bit better. In every single interview I've had, I don't know if you're the same, they've given me time to ask them questions. I don't think I've ever had less than 5 minutes to do that. And it would be really awkward if you finished your interview and they're like, so do you have any questions for me? And you're like, nah, I'm good. I don't really want to find anything else about your school. No, you need to get all you can out of your interviewer and make sure that they know that you value their input as well. I had one guy who gave me 10, maybe even 15 minutes to ask him questions about the school. It's crazy. But yeah, so make sure you go with lots of questions. Also, during the day, you're going to have lots of time to talk to students. You're going to have lunch with students. I had a student panel one time. When you're waiting to interview, they'll probably just sprinkle students in between where you're sitting and all that kind of thing. You can ask them questions. You'll have lots of time with students from the school. So make sure you have lots of questions to be able to ask them. Okay, then here's just some general tips, more logistical kind of things, but just little things to remember for interviews as well. make sure you figure out your logistics really well. I have a funny story about this. My first interview was at Texas A&M. They have multiple campuses, and so the one that I was interviewing at was in Temple, Texas, which is this little town with a huge giant hospital that's twice the size of McCady in there. So it's a really weird demographic. But anyway, it's an hour and 10 minutes away from Austin, which is where I flew into. So I was like, okay, I'll just go rent a car. I'll go I was sleeping at a student's house that night, and then I'll go to my interview the next day, come back after I'm done, fly out. And so I went to rent my car, went up to the desk, it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I put down my driver's license, and they said, this expired about a week ago. I was like, crap, what am I gonna do? I'm staying with a student, I told him I'd be there in about an hour, and I have no car. So I had to take a $110 Uber ride out to Temple, which was terrible, and I had to get my Uber driver to, like, he offered to come get me the next day to take me back. It was just terrifying. Like, I was so worried that I wasn't gonna make it to my interview and anything like that. It was really uncomfortable, and I was far more stressed about making it back to the airport than I was about my actual interview. So make sure you figure out your logistics and don't have an expired driver's license. Just make sure you have everything that you need so you can be comfortable for your interview. Go early, but don't go super, super early because they might not be ready for you and then you seem obnoxious. Just go early enough that you know if you get lost, you'll be fine. If there's bad traffic, you'll be fine, but don't go mega early because that will bug them. Get to know your fellow interviewees. You'll have lots of time, not lots, but you'll have some time where you just sit around and you're like waiting to interview, right? And you're just kind of in this waiting room kind of environment and it can get kind of uncomfortable. If you start talking to the other people, A, it can help you hear how their interviews have gone if they've already interviewed, which can help you gauge kind of what to expect. But it can also just break the ice so that you're a lot more comfortable, and I found that opening up to them has been really helpful for me. Zach has an experience that I haven't had. I haven't had any mean interviewers. For the most part, all my interviewers have been really nice. They've all been really conversational. I've had traditional interviews. Beck will talk about how MMIs are different. But they've just been really conversational. They've just been talking to me about my experiences, and I've just elaborated on things. It's really comfortable. I've only had one that was really indifferent. He wasn't like mean. He was just like, everything I said was just like, write down some stuff. Ask me another question. I'd tell him, write down some stuff. So he wasn't mean. He was just like a stone wall. But on the off chance that you do have a mean interviewer, I heard from someone who's at the U of fourth year, who's been an interviewer this year and has been on the admissions committee, and they said, just make sure you're listening to the interviewer, even if they're mean to you, and even if they're upfront with you, just listen to them and respond like you normally would. Don't let them fluster you, don't let them knock you off your beat and that kind of a thing, because they'll notice that, and that might be what they're trying to do. So just don't let it fluster you, just respond calmly. Did you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so I didn't react very well. I was pretty tired, just like a kid. So I got defensive. And looking back, I think asking better questions for her to clarify why she was, because she was saying that I had never been challenged enough to know I was getting into, and that I was going to be failing and needed to be ready to fail. And so I didn't ask very many questions. I just started saying, well, I took as many hard classes as I could and thought that I proved that I was able to be here. So yeah, I would, if there's something you don't understand, try and make it more of a conversation than a question and answer. That would go a lot more smooth. Did you have any interviews?
You just kind of you just didn't really give much feedback.
And you finish the interview and you're like, that either could have gone super awesome or super terrible, and that, yeah. So it's not super common to get like a mean interviewer, like pretty forceful interviewer, but it can happen. So most of the part they're really nice. Okay, this seems like a dumb bullet point to have, but honestly, at my last interview, I think I saw up to 6 people who took out their phones on the day of the interview. It was just during the time where you're sitting around waiting to get interviewed, but still, don't take out your phone, be present, talk to people who are in the room, don't be weird, just, I can't stress that enough, because it looked terrible. I mean, and these kids were like on Instagram, they weren't doing anything important, they were just moseying around on their phone. So make sure you're in the game on interview day and you're not somewhere else.
Also another random tip like that, don't chew gum.
Yeah.
There's at HE still in Arizona, we were just having a brief introduction, and the dean of the school was there. And there were a whole bunch of students, and he was asking a kid a question. He was chewing gum, and the dean kind of got into his face and was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't chew gum here." And so that just like stood out. And that was like the very first of the day, so that probably just like set the tone for his whole day of the interview. Just don't chew gum. You can bring mints if you want, like before you go into your interview, take out a little mint, pop it in, but don't chew gum. So.
I stayed at a podiatry student's house in DMU, and he said he got declined to his first podiatry school because he was chewing gum. That was the only reason. It's like, that's. Anyway, last thing, make sure you just have a good time. Like, again, they're there because they like you. They're there because they want you to go to their school. So don't be nervous, don't be scared, that kind of thing. Enjoy, like, when you go on the tour, like, look at the stuff and ask them lots of questions and just enjoy being there because they want you there. And that's the point of the interviews. You're finding out about the school, they're finding out about you. It's really comfortable. Just don't stress it too much. Here's some questions that I've been asked, and some of them are me specific. But just to give you an idea, I've had very few ethical questions asked to me in traditional interviews. The only one, I'd say the biggest one is the one that I already mentioned about doing diabetes research. Asking you what you think the biggest problem is in healthcare. But aside from those, most of them are very like questions about you. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? What do you do in your spare time? What do you want to practice in medicine? My favorite one I think my favorite interview question I've been asked is that top right one. They just said, take 5 minutes and teach us about something. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be school, it doesn't have to be anything. So I sat there and taught my 3 interviewers about swimming because I'm a swimmer. So I taught them about swimming for 5 minutes. It was really interesting and I thought it was really cool. So most of them are very like questions about things that you should know about because they're about your application or they're about you personally. So I think that's the end of my traditional stuff.
And on a lot of the questions that they ask you to, I like, at least me personally, I don't know what you've done, but I like to tie in my experiences and kind of provide, I guess, evidence for my answers to their questions. I don't know, so maybe like, is there a specific specialty you want to go into? I don't say, yeah, I just want to go into like dermatology or something. I use my experiences to say, this is why I want to do that. I've had an experience shadowing this type of position. Kind of turn me away from that specialty maybe put more interest in it. So use your experiences to kind of help back up your statements too.
Yeah. Any questions on traditional interviews or just general interview stuff before Beck starts going on in your mind? No? Okay.
Can I just show them, yeah, one of my interviews, the very last question was, because they'd already asked me if I had any questions, and then one of the doctors asked if there were any questions that I prepared for that they hadn't asked me yet. I was like, well, that's a slippery question. So I said, I'm just glad you didn't get to those questions. You just left it there, and they laughed, and I got in. So like, it's good to be yourself. You don't have to be like a robot and provide like some strict answer every time, but just be loose, and they like to see who you are.
It's good to tie in some humor here and there, but keep it appropriate and don't overdo it. Like that was a big one, but like don't overdo the humor and just keep it appropriate and I think it should be good.
Maybe one more thing on that. Go find, there's bazillion lists online of like example med school questions, interview questions.